David woke up to the soft sound of his alarm, the small beeping cutting through the quiet apartment. The sun had just started to peek through the thin curtains, painting faint stripes on the worn wooden floor. He rubbed his eyes and glanced at the clock. Today was important. Today he had a chance that could change everything for him and his daughter, Lily. A chance to get a job that could finally give them a stable life, away from the constant stress of unpaid bills and endless work hours. He got out of bed slowly, feeling the ache in his back from the night before. Life had not been kind to him, but he had learned to push through. Every morning he went through the same routine, making a small breakfast, helping Lily get ready for school, and then heading out to work. Today was different, though. Today was the day of his interview at a tech company that seemed like a dream. He had spent weeks preparing for it, rehearsing answers in front of the mirror, memorizing facts about the company, and thinking about how he would tell his story, his struggles, and his determination. Lily shuffled into the kitchen, her small feet padding softly across the floor. She wore her school uniform, her hair in a messy braid that David had tried to fix but had given up on. Knowing she would just mess it up again, she climbed onto a chair at the small table and stared at her dad with sleepy eyes. "Morning, Daddy," she mumbled. David smiled, trying to hide the tension in his chest. "Morning, Pumpkin. Did you sleep well?" "Mm-hmm," she said, barely opening her eyes. She reached for the small bowl of cereal that David had prepared. He watched her eat quietly, his mind racing with thoughts of the interview. This was his shot. If he got this job, they could move to a better neighborhood, maybe even get a small house with a yard where Lily could play safely. No more cramped apartment, no more worrying if the rent could be paid on time. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The pressure was immense, but he knew he could do it. After breakfast, he helped Lily pack her bag, making sure she had everything for school. He kissed her forehead, and she ran out the door with a cheerful wave, her backpack bouncing against her small frame. Watching her leave, David felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. He wanted to make her proud, and he wanted to give her a life free from constant struggle. He took a deep breath and left the apartment, briefcase in hand. The city was alive with the usual morning chaos. Cars honked, people rushed past, and the air smelled faintly of bread from a nearby bakery. David moved through the streets with purpose, checking his watch frequently. He had planned his route carefully, factoring in traffic and subway schedules. But city life had a way of surprising even the most prepared. As he approached a quiet intersection, he noticed an elderly woman struggling with a heavy bag of groceries. She looked fragile, her shoulders hunched under the weight, and she was trying to keep her balance on the uneven pavement. A cyclist came speeding down the street and she stumbled, her bag tipping dangerously. Without thinking, David ran forward, catching her just as she nearly fell. "Oh my, thank you, young man," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know what I would have done." David laughed softly, brushing it off. "No worries, ma'am. Happens to the best of us. Are you okay?" She nodded, adjusting her grip on the bag. Yes, I'm fine now, thanks to you." David smiled, but then he glanced at his watch. Panic surged through him. He had spent weeks preparing for this moment, and now, because of a few seconds, he was already late. He muttered a quick apology and sprinted down the street, weaving between pedestrians and narrowly avoiding a taxi. His heart pounded in his chest. He had imagined this interview countless times, rehearsing what he would say, how he would impress the hiring manager, and now he was racing against time, his mind a blur of anxiety and hope. By the time he reached the building, he was out of breath, his suit slightly wrinkled, and his hair mussed from the wind. He hurried to the reception desk, trying to steady his breathing. The receptionist looked at him with a polite smile. "I'm sorry, sir, the interview for this position has already been filled." David felt his chest tighten. He nodded slowly, trying to hide his disappointment. "I understand," he said quietly. He turned and walked away, the weight of the missed opportunity pressing down on him. He had worked so hard, and now it felt as if all his effort had been for nothing. Every preparation, every sleepless night, every moment of worry for Lily's future, it all seemed wasted. He walked through the streets in a daze, trying to process what had happened. People bustled around him, rushing to their own destinations, unaware of his defeat. He felt small in the vast city, a single man carrying the weight of responsibility for a child, struggling to make ends meet, and now facing yet another disappointment. As he trudged back home, He replayed the incident with the elderly woman in his mind. He hadn't regretted helping her, of course, but he couldn't help but think about the consequences of every choice he made. Life had a way of testing him, and he often felt like he was just barely keeping up. He thought about Lily, about how she depended on him, about the life he wanted to give her. The thought of failing her filled him with a deep sadness. When he finally arrived at the apartment, Lily was sitting on the couch, her homework spread out on the small coffee table. She looked up and smiled, noticing the long face her father wore. "Did it go okay, Daddy?" she asked innocently. David shook his head, forcing a small smile. "Not quite, Pumpkin. But that's okay. We'll keep trying." He sank onto the couch beside her, feeling the exhaustion of the day settle into his bones. Lily leaned against him, her small hand holding his. Her warmth and trust gave him a moment of peace, a reminder of why he kept going despite everything. That evening, David sat alone in the quiet apartment, reflecting on the day's events. He thought about the missed interview, about the struggles he faced, about the uncertainty of the future. But he also thought about the small moments of kindness, the times he could make a difference in someone else's life. Helping the elderly woman had been a brief, fleeting act, yet it had reminded him of the importance of compassion, of human connection, of doing what is right even when it costs something. He made a silent promise to himself. No matter how hard life got, he would never compromise his values. He would continue to work hard to care for Lily, and to help those who needed it, even if it meant making sacrifices. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he also knew that every step he took, every choice he made, could lead to something greater. As David prepared for bed, he felt a mix of exhaustion and quiet determination. The city outside was alive with the hum of life, and he closed his eyes, imagining a future where his hard work would pay off, where he and Lily could live without fear, where small acts of kindness could create unexpected opportunities. For now, he had nothing but hope, but it was enough to carry him through the challenges that lay ahead. Tomorrow was another day, another chance, and he was ready to face it, one step at a time. The days that followed were quiet but filled with constant work for David. He returned to his delivery job, taking extra shifts whenever they were available. The small apartment felt heavier, not because of furniture, but because of the weight of responsibilities he carried. Every time he walked in the door, Lily would greet him with a smile, and it was enough to keep him going. But deep down, he felt the sting of the missed interview. It was a chance he had worked so hard for, and the frustration lingered, gnawing at him silently. One afternoon, while delivering packages through the busy streets, David noticed an unusual sense of familiarity with one of the addresses. It was a tall building with polished glass windows and a large, elegant door that gave off an air of wealth. He remembered it vaguely, like a name he had heard in the news, a prominent family known for their philanthropic work. He finished his delivery quickly and moved on, but curiosity tugged at him. The thought of the woman he had helped that day in the street kept surfacing, though he didn't know why. Back at home, David tried to push the thoughts aside and focus on what mattered most: providing for Lily. He spent his evenings helping her with homework, preparing simple meals and tucking her into bed with a story. Despite the exhaustion, he found joy in these small moments, seeing the light in her eyes as she laughed or shared stories from her day. It reminded him of why he fought so hard to keep moving forward. Then one morning, as he was preparing for work, a letter arrived. It was an invitation to a charity event hosted by the Prescott Family Foundation. David paused, staring at the elegant envelope with disbelief. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Why would someone like him, a delivery man, receive such an invitation? He hesitated, wondering if it was a trick or a misunderstanding. But something inside him nudged him to accept. He folded the letter carefully and put it aside, deciding to take Lily's advice. "Maybe this is why you helped that lady, Dad." The day of the event arrived, and David felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. He had no experience in such social settings, and the thought of mingling with wealthy and influential people made him anxious. He chose his best suit, which still looked simple and worn, and carefully brushed his hair. He wanted to make a good impression, but he also knew he couldn't pretend to be someone he wasn't. Authenticity had always been his strongest quality, and he hoped it would carry him through. At the venue, he was awed by the grandeur. The large hall sparkled with crystal chandeliers, and elegantly dressed guests moved gracefully, conversing and laughing. David felt out of place at first, standing quietly at the edge observing the scene. But as he moved closer to help the event staff with organizing tables and arranging donations, he realized that being helpful allowed him to feel at ease. He was not just a guest. He was contributing, and it made him feel grounded. Then, in the midst of the crowd, he saw her, the elderly woman he had helped that day. Mrs. Prescott's eyes lit up when she saw him, and she approached with a warm smile. "I hope you remember me," she said kindly. "I am very grateful for your help that day." David's eyes widened in recognition, and he felt a rush of embarrassment and relief. He had never imagined that a simple act of kindness could lead to this moment. They sat together, and Mrs. Prescott shared stories of her family and the work they did through their foundation. David listened intently, fascinated by her dedication and wisdom. She then spoke of her son, Thomas Prescott, the CEO of the tech company he had once hoped to join. She described him as a man of integrity, someone who valued honesty, compassion, and talent. David realized that he had unknowingly crossed paths with this influential family in the most unexpected way. Later, Thomas arrived at the event. When he saw David, he smiled warmly. "My mother has told me about you," he said. David was taken aback, unsure how to respond. Thomas continued, expressing admiration for David's selflessness and character. They spoke for hours, and David shared his life story, his struggles as a single father and his aspirations. Thomas listened carefully, nodding and asking thoughtful questions, genuinely interested in David's perspective. Through their conversation, David began to see an opportunity forming before him, one that went beyond the missed interview. Thomas offered insight into the company's values and the kind of people they sought to hire. David realized that his life experiences, his dedication, and his moral compass were qualities that mattered as much as formal education or polished resumes. It was a moment of clarity for him, seeing that life sometimes rewards courage and kindness in ways that are not immediately visible. The evening progressed, and David helped with organizing donations, speaking to guests, and sharing his story when asked. Each interaction reinforced his confidence. He was no longer the man who felt invisible in the city. He was making connections, being seen for who he truly was. Mrs. Prescott watched with pride, her eyes filled with warmth, knowing that the young man she had met on the street embodied values she admired deeply. As the event concluded, Thomas extended an invitation for David to meet formally the next week to discuss potential opportunities at the company. David's heart raced with a mix of disbelief, excitement, and gratitude. He had never expected that helping someone without knowing who they were could lead to such a chance. It was a twist of fate, a lesson in how life's seemingly small actions could ripple into life-changing opportunities. That night, back in his small apartment, David reflected on everything that had happened. He shared the news with Lily, who squealed with delight and hugged him tightly. "I knew it, Daddy. You helped her, and now something good is happening." Her joy was infectious, and David felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. He knew the path ahead would still be challenging, but he also knew that the choices he made, guided by kindness and integrity, had brought him to this moment. As he lay in bed that night, David thought about the unexpected connection he had made. He realized that the city, with all its chaos and struggle, also held opportunities for those who were willing to act selflessly and stay true to their values. He understood that life didn't always reward plans that were carefully laid out. Sometimes it rewarded courage, compassion, and the willingness to act without expecting anything in return. He closed his eyes with a quiet determination, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey that could change both his and Lily's lives forever. The next week arrived with a mixture of nervous anticipation and cautious excitement for David. He woke up early, as he always did, but this morning felt different. There was a sense of purpose in the air, a feeling that something significant was about to happen. He dressed carefully in his best suit, which had been pressed meticulously the night before. He checked his reflection in the mirror, adjusted his tie, and took a deep breath, trying to steady the rapid beating of his heart. David arrived at the office building of the tech company, the polished glass entrance reflecting the bright morning sun. He had never imagined stepping into a place like this for anything other than a fleeting dream. As he entered the lobby, he was greeted by the receptionist who guided him to a private meeting room. He took a seat, hands folded on his lap, and tried to calm his nerves. Soon, Thomas Prescott entered the room, his presence calm yet commanding. He shook David's hand firmly, a gesture that conveyed both respect and warmth. They sat down, and Thomas began by asking David about his experiences, both personal and professional. David spoke honestly, sharing his life as a single father, the challenges he faced, and the lessons he had learned along the way. He explained how he managed to balance work, parenting, and personal growth, emphasizing his determination to provide a better life for Lily. Thomas listened attentively, occasionally nodding, clearly impressed by David's sincerity and resilience. He asked questions about problem-solving and decision-making, and David responded with thoughtful examples from his own life, showing that his character was shaped not just by formal education, but by real-life experiences and the choices he had made under pressure. The conversation then shifted to the company's values and the importance of integrity, empathy, and collaboration. David felt an immediate connection with Thomas's vision, realizing that the company valued not only technical skills, but also the character and mindset of its employees. He could see that his own approach to life aligned perfectly with what Thomas considered essential for success. After the formal discussion, Thomas suggested a tour of the office. David walked through the workspace, observing employees collaborating, discussing projects, and working with focus and enthusiasm. The environment was unlike anything he had experienced before, and he felt a sense of excitement at the thought of becoming part of such a dynamic team. Thomas pointed out various departments and explained their functions, emphasizing the company's commitment to innovation and social responsibility. During the tour, they encountered several staff members who greeted Thomas warmly. David noticed how respected and well-liked he was, and he felt a surge of motivation to prove himself worthy of an opportunity at this company. As they returned to the meeting room, Thomas offered David the chance to contribute to a new project that required both practical skills and creative thinking. David listened intently, understanding that this could be the beginning of a transformative journey. The days following the meeting were a whirlwind of preparation and adjustment for David. He balanced his existing job with research and self-study, learning about the company's projects, industry trends, and innovative strategies. He wanted to ensure that when the opportunity arrived, he could contribute effectively and demonstrate his value. Every spare moment was devoted to preparation, even late nights after Lily had gone to sleep. Lily noticed the change in her father. He seemed more focused, more driven, and yet there was a calmness about him that had not been there before. She asked him about his work, and he explained in simple terms, careful to inspire her without burdening her with stress. Her eyes sparkled with admiration, and she would often say, "Daddy, you're going to do great things," giving him the encouragement he needed to keep moving forward. Finally, the day came when David was asked to participate in a hands-on assessment for the project Thomas had mentioned. He arrived early, taking a moment to center himself before entering the room. The tasks were challenging, requiring practical problem-solving, creativity, and teamwork. David approached each task methodically, drawing on his real-life experience and his innate resourcefulness. He communicated clearly, collaborated effectively with others, and demonstrated a level of dedication that impressed the evaluators. After the assessment, David returned home exhausted but exhilarated. He shared the experience with Lily, who listened intently, asking questions and expressing excitement about her father's achievements. Despite the fatigue, he felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. The journey was far from over, but he had proven to himself that he could rise to challenges, adapt, and excel when given the chance. That evening, David received a call from Thomas. He was invited to a formal interview to discuss a potential role within the company. Thomas emphasized that the decision would not be based solely on skills, but also on integrity, work ethic, and the ability to persevere in the face of adversity. David felt a surge of gratitude and anticipation. He realized that his life experiences, his struggles, and his character were not obstacles but assets that made him uniquely qualified for this opportunity. As the interview day approached, David continued to balance work, preparation, and parenting. He reflected on the journey that had led him to this point: the missed interview, the chance encounter with Mrs. Prescott, and the series of events that had unfolded as a result. He understood that life had a way of testing people, offering opportunities in unexpected forms, and rewarding those who acted with kindness, courage, and resilience. On the morning of the formal interview, David felt a mixture of nervousness and confidence. He dressed carefully, ensuring that he looked presentable but also authentic. Lily helped him adjust his tie and gave him a small hug. "You'll do great, Daddy. Just be yourself," she said, and her words filled him with calm determination. The interview was thorough but engaging. Thomas and a small panel of managers asked questions about his experiences, his approach to problem solving, and his ability to handle challenges. David answered honestly, drawing on examples from both his personal life and professional experience. He emphasized his commitment to integrity, empathy, and continuous learning. The panel responded positively, noting his clarity, confidence, and genuine character. After the interview, David left the building feeling a sense of accomplishment. He had given his best, stayed true to himself, and navigated a situation that once seemed impossible. As he walked through the city streets, he reflected on how far he had come and how a single act of kindness, the day he had helped Mrs. Prescott, had set all of this in motion. That night, he returned home to Lily, sharing the details of the interview in a way that she could understand. She listened with wide eyes, clearly proud of her father. They talked about the future, imagining the possibilities that awaited them. David felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose, understanding that life's challenges could lead to unexpected opportunities if met with courage and integrity. As he prepared for bed, David realized that this journey had taught him more than any job or career could. It had reinforced the importance of kindness, perseverance, and staying true to oneself. He understood that while the path ahead would still have obstacles, he had the strength, determination, and character to navigate them successfully. With a sense of calm anticipation, he drifted off to sleep, ready to face whatever came next. Knowing that this was only the beginning of a life-changing chapter for him and Lily, David woke up the morning after his interview with a mix of nervousness and hope. He had done everything he could, giving his honest answers, sharing his story, and showing his dedication. The day felt heavy with anticipation, yet he knew he had no control over the outcome. He got up, helped Lily prepare for school, and sent her off with a hug and a wave. Her smile gave him strength, and he reminded himself that no matter what happened, he had done his best. As he went about his morning routine, he received a phone call from the company. His heart raced as he answered. On the other end, Thomas Prescott spoke warmly, expressing admiration for David's honesty, perseverance, and character. He explained that the company wanted to offer him a position that suited his skills and experience. David was stunned. He had never imagined that helping an elderly woman weeks ago could lead to this moment. His gratitude and disbelief battled within him, leaving him momentarily speechless. After gathering himself, he thanked Thomas sincerely, promising to give his absolute best in the role. Thomas encouraged him, emphasizing that his integrity and dedication had already made a positive impression on the team. David hung up, feeling a surge of relief and excitement. He knew that this job was not just a career opportunity. It was a chance to provide stability, security, and a better future for Lily. That afternoon, he shared the news with Lily. Her eyes widened in amazement, and she hugged him tightly, exclaiming that she had always believed in him. They celebrated quietly, savoring the moment together. David felt a profound sense of responsibility, knowing that he now had the means to change their lives, but also recognizing the effort required to maintain it. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. David focused on learning about his new role, understanding the company culture, and planning how he could contribute effectively. Every detail mattered to him, from the tasks he would handle to the relationships he would build with colleagues. He knew that success would not come automatically. It would require dedication, focus, and continuous effort. On his first day, David arrived early, feeling both nervous and determined. He was greeted by a welcoming team who showed him around the office and introduced him to his responsibilities. The environment was vibrant, collaborative, and filled with energy. David immediately felt a sense of belonging, realizing that this was a place where his skills and values were appreciated. As he settled into his work, he discovered that the role required not only technical knowledge but also creativity, problem-solving, and teamwork. David drew on his life experiences, applying lessons from both personal and professional challenges. He found that his perspective as a single father, managing responsibilities and finding solutions in everyday life, gave him unique insights that others sometimes overlooked. He also developed close working relationships with his colleagues, earning their respect through hard work, reliability, and integrity. While the workload was demanding, David approached each task with determination and thoughtfulness. He understood that consistent effort and a willingness to learn would be key to thriving in this new environment. Outside of work, David maintained his routine with Lily, ensuring that her needs remained a priority. They spent evenings together doing homework, reading, and sharing stories. He also made time for small outings, allowing her to enjoy simple pleasures like the park, ice cream, or library visits. These moments reinforced his understanding that success was not only measured by professional achievement, but also by the quality of relationships and the happiness of those he loved. Weeks passed, and David began to excel in his role. His contributions were recognized, and he started to feel a growing sense of confidence. The team valued his input, and Thomas Prescott continued to offer guidance and mentorship. David was impressed by Thomas's approach to leadership, which combined high expectations with genuine care for employees. This encouraged David to develop both professionally and personally. As his life stabilized, David reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The missed interview, the chance encounter with Mrs. Prescott, and the subsequent opportunities had all been pivotal moments. He realized that life often rewarded courage, empathy, and integrity, even if the rewards were not immediate or obvious. Helping someone without expecting anything in return had ultimately opened the door to a life-changing opportunity. David also thought about the lessons he wanted to pass on to Lily. He hoped she would understand that kindness, honesty, and hard work were more important than shortcuts or immediate gains. He wanted her to grow up valuing people for who they were, not for their wealth or status. This perspective had guided his choices, and he felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that he was modeling these values for her. One day, during a company meeting, Thomas praised David's contributions, highlighting not only his technical abilities but also his dedication, empathy, and teamwork. The acknowledgement was meaningful, reinforcing David's belief in the importance of character and perseverance. His colleagues admired his journey and often sought his advice, appreciating his grounded perspective and problem-solving skills. Outside work, David continued to engage with the community. He volunteered occasionally, inspired by the idea that giving back was a vital part of success. These activities brought him a sense of purpose beyond his professional achievements and strengthened his connection to others. He realized that true fulfillment came from balancing personal success with meaningful contributions to society. As months passed, David's life transformed in ways he had only dreamed of. Financial stability allowed them to move into a larger apartment, with more space for Lily to play and learn. The stress of unpaid bills diminished, replaced by the freedom to plan for the future. Yet David remained humble, aware that his journey had been shaped by choices, chance, and the kindness of others. He often thought back to the day he helped Mrs. Prescott, marveling at how one selfless act had created a ripple effect that changed his life. He understood that every small decision, every kind gesture could have profound consequences. This awareness strengthened his resolve to live intentionally, making choices that aligned with his values and the well-being of those he loved. David's relationship with Lily flourished. She thrived in school, inspired by her father's dedication and the stability of their new life. They shared laughter, learning, and moments of quiet reflection, building a bond that was resilient and nurturing. David knew that providing for her was more than financial security. It was about presence, love, and guidance. Through it all, David remained committed to personal growth. He sought to improve his skills, expand his knowledge, and contribute meaningfully to his work and community. He embraced challenges with determination, understanding that growth often came from perseverance and the willingness to step outside comfort zones. His journey from struggle to stability was a testament to the power of resilience, integrity, and the courage to act with kindness, even when the outcome was uncertain. By the end of the year, David looked back on the transformation in his life with gratitude and humility. The challenges he had faced, The missed opportunities and the moments of uncertainty had all shaped him into a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate person. He knew that the journey was ongoing, but he felt equipped to face whatever came next, confident in his ability to create a life of purpose, joy, and meaningful impact for himself and Lily. David's life had transformed in ways he never imagined. The stability and opportunities he had gained through the new job allowed him to focus on building a future for himself and Lily. The small apartment where they had struggled to make ends meet was replaced with a more spacious home, bright and full of life. Lily now had a room of her own, a place where she could play, read, and dream. The joy in her eyes reminded David daily of why he had worked so hard, why he had never given up, and why he had chosen to act with kindness even when it seemed inconvenient. At work, David's dedication and humility continued to impress everyone around him. Thomas Prescott, the CEO, had not only welcomed him into the company but also encouraged him to take on more responsibility as he grew into his role. David found himself contributing to important projects, collaborating with talented colleagues, and learning new skills that expanded his confidence and competence. Yet despite all the professional recognition, he never lost sight of the values that had brought him this far: honesty, integrity, and compassion. One day, Thomas called David into his office for a private conversation. David entered with his usual cautious optimism, wondering what this meeting might entail. Thomas smiled warmly, expressing how impressed he was with David's work and character. He mentioned that the company wanted to support employees who demonstrated exceptional dedication, not just in technical ability, but in the way they treated others, handled challenges, and maintained integrity. David felt a sense of pride realizing that his life experiences and personal choices had led him to a place where he was truly valued. Thomas also shared how the story of the day David helped his mother had inspired a company-wide reflection on compassion and integrity. It had become a quiet legend within the office, a reminder that the smallest acts of kindness could have life-changing consequences. David was humbled, knowing that what he considered a simple gesture had ripple effects far beyond his imagination. David also began mentoring some of his colleagues, sharing his perspective on balancing life, work, and personal growth. He emphasized practical problem-solving, perseverance, and empathy, encouraging others to approach challenges with patience and understanding. His advice was sought not only for technical matters but also for navigating life's uncertainties. His experience as a single father provided unique insights, and he used them to guide others with wisdom and compassion. At home, David and Lily continued to enjoy their newfound stability. They explored the city together on weekends, visited museums, parks, and community events, and took time to celebrate small achievements. Lily's laughter and curiosity filled their home with warmth, reminding David that happiness often came from shared moments rather than material wealth. He cherished these experiences, knowing that they were building memories that would shape Lily's life for years to come. The transformation in David's life also strengthened his sense of purpose. He became actively involved in community initiatives, volunteering where he could, and supporting causes that promoted education, child welfare, and opportunities for disadvantaged families. His own journey had shown him that one small act of kindness could grow into something far greater, and he wanted to ensure that others experienced similar hope and opportunity. Months passed, and David's career continued to progress. He received recognition for his contributions, not just in meeting objectives but in fostering a positive, collaborative work environment. Thomas often consulted him on employee development, appreciating his insights and the balance he brought between practical experience and empathetic leadership. David felt grateful for the trust placed in him and approached each day with determination and humility. David also made time to reflect on the journey that had led him here. He remembered the anxious mornings, the struggles of working long hours while caring for Lily, and the day he had rushed to help Mrs. Prescott. He realized that life was a series of interconnected moments, each decision and action influencing the next. The missed interview, once a source of despair, had ultimately led him to a path he could not have planned, a path filled with growth, opportunity, and meaningful relationships. One evening, David sat with Lily on the balcony, watching the sun set over the city skyline. The lights began to twinkle as night approached, and they spoke quietly about their hopes and dreams. Lily shared her ideas about school, friendships, and her ambitions, while David listened attentively, offering encouragement and guidance. He understood that his role as a father was more than providing for her materially. It was about nurturing her confidence, values, and resilience. David's life, though filled with responsibilities and challenges, now had a sense of balance and fulfillment he had never known before. He knew that success was not defined solely by financial stability or career achievements, but by the impact he could have on the lives of others and the example he set for Lily. Each day was an opportunity to act with integrity, compassion, and purpose. Years later, David often reflected on the pivotal moments that had shaped his life. The day he helped Mrs. Prescott unaware of her identity remained a defining experience. It had shown him that selflessness and courage could create unexpected opportunities. That kindness had a value beyond immediate recognition, and that life had a way of rewarding those who acted with honesty and empathy. He knew that while the path had been difficult, every challenge had strengthened him, preparing him for the responsibilities and blessings that followed. David's story became known in small circles at the company and in his community, not for fame or recognition, but as an example of how integrity, perseverance, and compassion could transform lives. He shared his experiences openly, encouraging others to believe in themselves, to act with kindness, and to embrace challenges with courage. His journey illustrated that even in moments of struggle and uncertainty, hope, dedication, and moral courage could lead to remarkable outcomes. As David looked toward the future, he felt a deep sense of contentment. He had created a stable, nurturing environment for Lily, contributed meaningfully to his work and community, and grown as an individual. Yet he remained humble, aware that life was a continuous journey of learning, giving, and striving for better. Every choice, every action, and every moment of integrity continued to shape not only his destiny, but also the lives of those around him. In the quiet of the evening, David smiled as he watched Lily asleep, her small hands resting peacefully on the blanket. He knew that the struggle, sacrifices, and challenges of the past had been worth it. The missed interview, once a source of frustration, had led to an extraordinary journey of growth, opportunity, and fulfillment. Through it all, David had learned that life's true rewards were found in kindness, resilience, and the courage to act with integrity, even when the outcome was uncertain. He closed his eyes with a heart full of gratitude, ready to continue building a life of hope, love, and meaningful impact for himself and his daughter.